Let me welcome everyone for coming. My traditional good evening, Michigan City, Indiana, and thank you all for joining us. You can tell that I'm pumped, and I think people up here join my enthusiasm with that. And we're in a great time in the city, and there's more and more opportunity for all of us to participate and learn from each other and build a phenomenal place to live, work, and play. So, with that, Deb, if you would report that everyone is in full attendance today at the commission. And that said, I look for my fellow commissioners to take a look at the executive session notes on May 13th, the regular meeting on May 13th, and the special meeting on May 21st.
Move to approve the minutes.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Let's take a look at the claims for June. Mr. Phillips, would you like to turn over those?
Give me just 1 second. I'm usually prepared for the regular meeting. Obviously, I wasn't able to switch over that quick. I just want to make sure I get the minutes out for signature here.
Oh.
There we go. All right. You should have a claims docket in front of you dated June 10th, 2019. Just want to verify, does everybody have that in their packets? Okay. On that, you'll note standard payroll items for May of 2019. Claims to the operating fund include payment to Great American Financial for copier fees for May of 2019. Payment to Alan Cernak for monthly retainer for April of 2019. Claims to the North TIF Fund include payments for landscape maintenance of various properties owned by the Redevelopment Commission, payment to Barnes & Thornburg for legal fees related to the North TIF, ending April 30th of 19. Payment to Butler, Fairman, and Seifert for costs related to the Sing Sands Trail Phase 2 design. Deutscher Construction for down payment for some repairs to the 11th Street Station property, which is owned by the Redevelopment Commission. Payment to Environmental Incorporated for Phase 2 environmental site assessment for property located within the North TIF District. Payment to Hitchcock Design Group for costs related to the Civic Plaza Phase 1 preliminary design services contract. Payment to Marquis Electric for replacement of glass on the message center at the 11th Street Station. Plews, Shadley, Racher, and Braun for legal fees related to the Trail Creek Properties Project. Sanitary District of Michigan City for reimbursement for fees incurred for the Vapor Intrusion Assessment Project. SEH of Indiana for costs related to the Washington Park Entry and Traffic Circle Project. And that's also costs related to the West Parking Lot project, just to be clear. Payment to Alan Cernak for legal fees for May of 2019 for the North TIF. Skyline Plastering for costs related to the Blue Chip Expansion project for Project EFIS and Stucco related to that project. Stanhope Consulting for costs related to the Civic Plaza Outreach contract. Antero Group for costs related to the Waste Inc. Project contract for April of 2019. Payment to NDOT for our portion of the costs related to the US 12 Bridge over Trail Creek deck replacement project. NDOT requires us to pay up front for those costs. And
so that is pretty much the full amount.
That's the full amount the city is paying for the project. And then that project is, as we said before, is expected to begin construction as soon as the weather breaks in 2020. What we're required to pay now, since the project has been let by NDOT, has been let and approved by NDOT, we're required to pay our payment up front. So that's why we're paying now. Payment to Beachside Gardens for down payment for landscaping installation on Franklin Street between 11th and 4th. And payments, excuse me, payments to Ton and Blank for the cost of removal of the stone, and categorization and storage of the stone for the front facade on 709 Franklin related to that demolition project. Claims to the South TIF include a payment to Haas & Associates for construction administration and inspection fees for the Ameriplex Road project, Alan Siernek for legal services to the South TIF for May of 2019. Great Lakes Engineering for a plat of survey for wetlands related to the recent offer of sale for the Cleveland Avenue property across the street from the fire station to the west. Payment to Walsh Kelly for construction regarding Ameriplex Road pay application request number 4. Claims to the Ohio Street Construction Fund include payment to Reith Riley Construction Company for pay application number 11 for the Ohio Street project. American Structure Point for construction inspection services for April of 2019. And there were no claims to the Wabash Street Fund or the Northeast TIF Fund.
All right, any questions on the claims docket? What's the pleasure of the commission?
Move to approve.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, so next item, find my agenda again here, is the financial report for April 30th.
All right, so you have a balance sheet in front of you dated April 30th, 2019. I believe that was passed out prior to the meeting.
Yes.
I'm not correct. Okay, I'm correct. Okay, on that, you'll note that cash, including our our operating account, has a balance of $298,651.35. The Southside TIF account currently has a balance of $13,342,572.09. The Southside TIF debt reserve account has a balance of $336,308.50. The Southside TIF capital account has a balance of $17,692.97. The North End TIF account has a balance of $4,249,278.03. The Wabash Streetscape Construction account has a balance of $122,341.56. The Wabash Streetscape Debt Reserve account has a balance of $216,072.49. And the Northeast TIF account has a balance of $113,148.95, bringing total cash of all accounts to $18,696,065.94. Loans receivable include a loan to the Eastside TIF district from the operating account, which will be repaid to the operating account upon receipt of funds from the Eastside TIF of $21,028.49. And our portion of the County Business Loan Fund of $133,333, bringing total loans receivable to $154,361.49, which brings our total assets to $18,850,427.43.
All right, any questions on the financial report? What's the pleasure of the commission?
Move to approve. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. All right, so
Next thing we'd like to request rearranging of the agenda. We have several individuals as well as consultants representing the projects associated with the Civic Plaza project here this evening. So I'd request that items 8 and 9 be moved up in front of the liquor license request and considered at this time.
I guess it's my pleasure to make that decision. I'm going to suggest that just given the numbers of people in the audience and the significance of the Plaza project, and I also think that it does have some tie into the liquor license project too, because as we build a better downtown, I think there's going to be more people want to recreate in our downtown. So I think they're all related. So unless my fellow commissioners have some opposition to that, I'm going to suggest we go with the Plaza first.
Okay, so let's start with just a quick update on the status of the 709 Franklin Street demolition project. And we have Stephen Travis, I believe, is in the audience with us this evening from Americo Engineering.
Good evening, Steve Travis, Americo Engineering. Just to give you an update on the 709 demolition project, Acton has got the building down. I don't know if you've been by there yet. It's looking pretty good. They just actually started backfilling the excavation today. The basement floor has been removed. The foundation wall has been removed. They're brought in 6 loads of sand. What they're going to do is backfill the excavation and then topple down the adjoining wall, the shared wall, with the south property. So
Now we did get correspondence from the adjoining property owner that I believe he had been in contact with Acton just about making sure that he was on site today. And as I understand it, Acton was working with him to honor that request regarding the shared wall between the properties.
so that he's present when the wall comes down.
I guess that was a request. Do you know anything about that?
I haven't
that
heard
was
this.
taken care of?
Yeah, I'll have to get with Acton and see what
Okay,
that
you want to
was.
just follow up on that? 'Cause
Sure.
I was a little uncomfortable because that owner contacted Acton directly.
Okay,
And
yep.
I don't think they involved you in that conversation, so I just
Yeah.
wanted to, I'll forward you a copy of that letter.
Okay, that'd be great.
I'll scan that and email it to you as well, just so you're aware.
Sure,
Want to be good neighbors.
sure, definitely.
All right. So anything else?
What's the
709?
anticipated, the remainder of the anticipated schedule as far as, we're gonna be doing the restoration of the site, obviously,
Mhm.
but we're gonna also be restoring the remainder of the lawn, like regrading and restoring the remainder of the lawn, and we're gonna be working with PR's Landscaping,
That's
I
correct.
think, on doing that. Is that correct? You know
Yeah,
what
yeah.
the timeline is on that?
So Acton's told us about 2 more weeks left in the project, depending on weather.
Yeah.
So,
And-
so we'll say 3 weeks.
And it's
just
also
be safe.
the land's going to be raised just a little bit so
Correct,
that we
correct,
don't
yes.
pool water on it.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Is that anything else
I
on
think that's it,
709?
unless you have anything else for us.
I'll check in
So at
on
this
that.
point, we're pretty confident that the demolition hasn't negatively impacted the neighboring building.
That's correct, yes.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, the only structure we were nervous about was a chimney, which had kind of extended up the wall of the adjoining property. It came down the first day, and it came down beautifully. So,
Okay. And we preserved the front sign on the building too?
correct. That was down maybe a month ago. So
Okay.
we've got that stored.
Right.
So, yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
Just on increasing the elevation of the property for drainage purposes, where will the drainage run off to? Have we looked at that? I mean,
Yeah, so it's going to pitch north to 7th Street gradually. So hopefully we'll get some infiltration by the time it reaches the road, but that's the general grading
the
as of
storm
now.
system there.
There's a storm sewer actually on the west adjoining lot. There's actually 2. So some of that water is going to be collected in that storm drain.
Just want to cause a problem in another spot.
Correct, yeah.
No, I mean, it's draining the same area that it drains now, it's just regrading it so that it doesn't pond.
Okay, other questions, comments? Right, well, thank you very much.
Yep,
Appreciate
thank
it. All right, so item 9, Craig, you want to lead this on the Civic Plaza project update?
Well, we've obviously been very engaged in a lot of different activities with regard to the Civic Plaza over the course of the last few years. And we're coming to a point this evening where we're going to be starting the approval process, where we're ultimately going to be asking for the authority to seek bonding authority for this project. And as part of that, we wanted to give the community an update on the project, kind of where we've been, how we got to the point we're at today, some overview of what the project consists of. I think what we're going to do is we're going to first have Joel Baldwin from Hitchcock Design Group go over that overview presentation so that everybody gets some background on the project. And then I think what we'll do after that is we'll follow that up with bringing Attorney Rampola up to talk about the first steps in the approval process and approval of the form of the lease and the other items that we need to cover this evening for consideration this evening. So let me get you set up real quick here, Joel, and we'll start that.
Good evening, Commissioners. Joel Baldwin, Hitchcock Design Group.
See, Rick Hitchcock himself is in the
Yes, Rick
city,
has joined
so
us today too.
Thank you.
His wife's out of town. He was lonely, I think.
He's just checking up on you a little bit, making sure you're up to the quality he expects. So you just don't have to sit in the light. So.
So as Craig mentioned, we wanted to give you an update tonight. Some of you have already seen a similar version of this. We were here approximately 3-4 weeks ago for 2 days worth of workshops with different stakeholders. This is a slimmed down version of that show that we gave that day. But we've actually have made some improvements and made some updates. So obviously Joel Baldwin, Hitchcock Design Group, and I'm sure Craig will jump in here at some point in time too and help with some items. So today we want to talk about a number of different things. You know, why develop a plaza, what it's going to look like. Want to discuss the program a little bit. We're not going to touch too much upon that today. Mostly we want to talk about how to manage and operate. There's been a lot of discussions about this over the past 8 months since we've been working on the project. And we've spent a lot of time really in the last 3 or 4 months in how to develop this the structure on the management and operation. We've been working real closely, a small task group representing the city. It's been Craig and Rich Murphy and Skylar and Abigail. Redevelopment's been Don, and actually former member of Redevelopment Commission, Kathy Dennis, has been working very closely with us. Abby May and Justin Post has been representing Main Street, and then Hubert Morgan, who's actually here today too, from Stanhope Consultants, has been an integral member of our team. Other members of our team that we're very excited about is Jen Lewin. Jen's an internationally known environmental artist. She has joined our team this spring and is going to be looking at doing a piece of her art in the plaza. So we're very excited about that. These are some of the examples of Jen's work. She does this interactive art that lights up, plays music, does different things that brings a lot of really interesting elements to the space. Another member that we've added this spring is Dan Senfer from Destination Rapid City. Many of you have already met Dan. Dan's been here a number of times. He couldn't be here today. He will be here in a couple weeks when we have a series of upcoming meetings and additional workshops. We're going to have a Main Street Now presentation and then a workshop, joint workshop with Redevelopment and City Council. And Dan will be in town that day as well as our final presentation to City Council. But Dan's been very critical. Member of the team, not critical, he's been a very important member of our team. He's the president of Rapid City, their plaza, which you see a couple pictures of it here. And so Dan's been very important with the operations and the management, kind of very much, you know, boots on the ground person. He goes through this every day. He knows how to operate these facilities and what it costs to do so.
He really brings credibility to the operations.
Yes, he does.
And a budget relative to the operations.
Yep.
So.
And a lot of the information that you'll see today has been developed jointly with Dan. Dan's got a great show that he gives, and since he's not here, I'm going to slim it down to one slide here. But just some of the benefits of the plaza. Why are we doing this? We want the focal point for the downtown. Obviously, it'll improve the quality of life. It's going to bring activity to the downtown daily. But it'll also be an additional space for special events. Everything that we've been talking about all evening here already, it's going to be spur additional economic development, tax revenue, increase property values and home values. A great opportunity for community building, especially with Michigan City's youth. There will be jobs coming out of this plaza, full-time jobs and seasonal and part-time jobs. It's going to be a benefit to the school system. We've been having lots of conversations with the local schools and how this could be an asset to them, and we're very excited and where those conversations are going. Opportunity for green infrastructure, and then obviously all the additional recreational benefits, the health benefits that will come from that as well. So the background, I think most people know where the plaza is proposed to be, but it'll be located between Washington and Franklin, kind of straddle 7th Street. It's been ongoing for a long time now. This is just the step that we're at right now, but it started in 2016 with Roger Brooks' branding development and marketing master plan, and he recommended a plaza as a strategy for downtown revitalization. Same year, 701, 705 Franklin were purchased. In 2017, they were abated, they were removed. We did some initial concepts in 2017 to start generating interest in the space. Primera Engineering did a utility relocate study on the overhead utilities that run down the alley. In 2018, Roger Brooks completed his program document. Hubert and Stanhope Consulting completed their community outreach. Extensive outreach had happened last fall with lots and lots of different community members on what they want to see in the plaza. Redevelopment purchased a former lake property in 709 Franklin. Americo Engineering completed their assessment, environmental engineering abatement. We are engaged for the schematic design, and then demolition started in 709 Franklin and is almost complete and will be shortly. So one of the first things our group did was we came up with a goal, very simple goal: design and construct a downtown plaza for Michigan City. Came up with a number of different objectives. We want to develop a program that supports the plaza as a focal point and community destination in downtown Michigan City. We want to design a great-looking, comfortable space that reinforces the brand of Create, Play, Repeat, that could host a wide variety of activities. We want to construct it on time and in budget. We want to identify and establish the management and operational infrastructure to support the plaza as a financially stable, self-sustaining entity. And we'll talk more about that later. We've established a number of expectations throughout our planning process. We want to connect to the surrounding neighborhood, not just physically, but culturally, economically, everything. We want this to be an extension of City of Michigan City and a place for everyone to come to. We want to respect the history. We want to enforce the brand. We want to shut down 7th Street. We want to have a multi-use space, an elevated stage and lawn, a multi-use building from everything from storage to restrooms, concessions to mechanical. Want to have a seasonal surface for winter activities, which would include ice skating and curling and broom ball, and you'll see a little bit later we're looking at doing these ice bumper cars, which would be a really cool amenity that no one else has done in the area. And then in the spring and the summer, the same surface would be used for roller skating, which we're very excited about as well. Want to include fire pits, so there's things out there all year round. Interactive fountain, creative lighting, public art, talked about that already a little bit. Play elements, green infrastructure, and then we really want these educational and economic components to the plaza. How can this benefit the youth in the schools in the city, and how can this be an economic engine for residents as well? So governance. Lots of questions about this over the last few months, and I want to sort of stress this enough. This is there's going to be a public-private organization, be a non-for-profit, that will manage the plaza. They'll have a contract with the City of Michigan City. It's not the city managing the space. The city will own it, they'll construct it, but this entity would lease the property for $1 a year. That organization will receive funding from a number of different sources, both public and private, and through plaza-generated revenue. It will have a full-time staff, and it will have a full-time board of directors. Our group is working on this governance right now, developing the bylaws and MOUs with the city and so on. But the board of directors would be responsible for policy, programming, marketing, and day-to-day operations. It would have an executive director. This is the person that's steering the ship. He's working with the city, applying for grants and foundation funding, managing the press, staff, and the funding of the plaza. This group would not be in place from day one. We're planning on phasing into this full-time staff, but there would be a programming and events manager. This person would be responsible for creating the activity and life on the plaza. The intent is to have daily activities out there. So 250 to 300 days a year, there's something going on in the plaza. The marketing manager is doing what the name says. They're responsible for bringing the residents and visitors into downtown, not just the plaza. The plaza, as noted, would be the focal point, but the idea is that they'll come to the plaza for different activities and disperse to the rest of the downtown, use the restaurants and stores and so on. There will be an operations manager that will be responsible for operating the space, and then obviously a controller for the bookkeeping. There will be additional staff and part-time jobs depending on what time of the year. And then some items will be contracted out, like landscaping and maintenance and trash pickup, security. So our group has established a very detailed budget, which Craig has copies of, which he could distribute to each one of you. We're not going to go into detail today, but what we've done, we've established the the costs and revenue over the next 4 years, and I'm going to jump to 2022. This is a few years down the road, and we've broken up revenue into 3 items: sustaining revenue, program revenue, and event program revenue. So these are the 3 main categories. We're looking at a total revenue of approximately $900,000. Our expenses are divided into 6 main categories: capital expenditure, program, event program, direct overhead, direct payroll, and indirect overhead expenses, which is approximately $850,000. So it's pretty much trying to balance the equation every year. Some years are closer than others, but the intent is not to make a substantial amount of money. It's just to make enough money to operate the space. So what it's going to look like. I'll talk a little bit about the schematic design and where we are at the moment. 3 images you see up on the screen right now are sort of the 3 main images that have influenced our team. The one to the left is beach glass and gravel. It's kind of things you find on a beach. The middle one is the historic image of the Pullman factory, so that, industrial history of the city. And then the other one is just an image of the dunes in Lake Michigan and kind of wind and movement and what they do to landforms and so on, and kind of influence in designing it. So all 3 of these, and I hope as we go through here, you'll see some of that inspiration come into the design. So this is the design of the plaza at the moment. The new building is located right here. So it's basically the same location as the building that was just removed. As mentioned, the facade has been salvaged and will be reapplied to this building. Have a little green roof on it, and stage and roof over the stage and so on. Most of the activity of the plaza is along Franklin.
Would you mind using the pointer on this
And this
screen,
one? Sure.
just so the audience can see a little bit here?
Yeah, I don't want to shoot you in the eye or anything. So again, the building's here. There's a little attached cafe with an overhead pergola. Front door of the building is right here, but these 2 doors will open up, and so we kind of have this interaction between indoor and outdoor use of the space. As mentioned, most of the activity of the plaza is along Franklin, which obviously makes a whole lot of sense. But this is the water feature and the interactive art piece. There's a number of these like amoeba shapes, which are movable platform benches that can be moved out of the space for really large events. This whole area is kind of the multi-use space. This dark green area and this area is what we're calling multi-use area, but it'd be synthetic turf areas. In the winter and spring and fall months is where the temporary rink would go up for the ice bumper cars and the roller skating. Outdoor dining and seating all over the place, different tables and chairs, kind of framed by some planters with trees and rain gardens. This area's got a lot of built-in benches, surrounding the space along Franklin that's going to obviously have most of the people. On the north end of the space, there will be an outdoor cafe along 621 Franklin, which is being envisioned by the Lakes who own this building. Another overhead pergola area with a couple outdoor fireplaces and tables and chairs, and then a little play area. A sort of entrance into the space here and here and here and here. This is an image of the floor plan of the proposed building. A little hard to see, but one of the main areas that we're really excited about is this learning lab. It's really a multi-space room with an attached kitchen. So again, we're working very closely with the schools on what this space will become. But we really see this as an opportunity for the community to use this space for lots of different things. It's right on Franklin with the new facade and open glass windows. They'll also open up into the little outdoor cafe concession area. So a main lobby with these 2 doors here that open up, so they kind of get this indoor-outdoor space. Concession, little office, little storage room for skates and so on, mechanical room, restrooms here, and then another multi-purpose room, which is also the green room for the outdoor stage. So this is the stage with access into the green room. There's also kind of a unique little area because the stage is elevated, so this is elevated over this room, but also gives us a little indoor space to do little indoor plays and children's plays and so on. Some elevations and what the building will look like. This is the north elevation, so imagine standing in the plaza looking back at the building. Here's the stage with overhead roof and those two doors that will open up and little concession area. This is the east elevation from Franklin, so you can see the old Grant building facade that will be reapplied to this building. This will be the multi-use community room. And then the west elevation looking towards the building as well into the other community room, which will be right here. Just some different perspectives of the space. This is bird above Franklin looking back into the space, but kind of an elevated perspective, bird's eye of what it'll look like, sort of the fountain and the interactive art piece, the building and outdoor fireplaces and pergola and playground, and then the large multi-use space. This is kind of the north end of the plaza looking back towards the stage across the multi-use area. This is close up of the stage. Play area. Kind of the entrance off of Franklin. There's close up of the art and fountain, so on.
So the fountain itself, at this point, it's anticipated to be flush with the ground.
Yes, it's flush with the ground, so the jets would come out of the pavement, be very interactive, be lights associated with it, could be themed with music and so on. We're not there yet, but it's all things that we're talking about doing. So again, when there's a really large event going on, fountain drops into the pavement. Obviously, the artwork's flush with the ground. Some of the benches get pulled out, tables and chairs get pulled out, and the whole plaza could really be used for large events. So again, the idea is that 250 to 300 days a year, there's activity, programmed activity in the space. Some of those programmed activities will be the fountain, the winter surface, the ice bumper cars, or during the spring and fall for roller skating, and then the concession space as well, which would include a beer garden. The other ideas, the intent is that it's programmed, the locals are coming down on a regular basis. Every 10 to 14 days, something different's coming in. We've been brainstorming tons of ideas. Hubert's got a huge list, but just everything from having food trucks in the space, having dancing, having different games and yoga, after-school programs, culinary programs. Obviously, there will be seasonal concerts and concerts throughout the summer. But the group is, just starting to brainstorm and accumulate these lists. And as we move forward, we'll develop this, and it'll probably change. Some will probably be more successful than others, and every year it'll change. But the idea is that it's constantly changing, and people are coming down to see what's happening, spending time downtown. Construction budget, as mentioned earlier, for phase one is $7 million. That includes general conditions, construction costs, design engineering, contingencies, and allowances and admin costs. The city is anticipating engaging a construction manager. That RFP will probably be issued shortly. And to sort of wrap up our next steps, and we've been working on this since last fall, but last month we had, as mentioned, 2 days of engaging stakeholders and presenting a similar show to them and getting feedback on what we've prepared so far. We're here today presenting to you, but on the 24th there will be a Michigan City Now presentation, then a joint RDC council presentation that evening. We're going to continue to finalize the schematic design and the draft bylaws. We'll be presenting to council on 7/16 with the intent of getting everything approved, and we hope to start construction this fall and complete the project next summer. So that's where we're at.
So,
Any questions?
any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
Designs look great.
Thank you.
I'm happy that you're working with the school systems, but I do have one question. Parking. Have we figured that out?
Let me address that.
Yeah, I'll let Craig. You asked the question that everyone asks.
I've gotten asked this question in every meeting we've had about this project. In 2014 or 2015, I don't remember off the top of my head right this moment, but the city did engage Walker Parking to take a look at every parking space in the downtown area, from Trail Creek down to Detroit Street on the south, Detroit and Green Street on the south, and from Pine to Wabash. And so we've inventoried every available parking space, whether it's public or private. We've identified opportunities for potential additional public-private agreements with churches or other entities, banks, etc., that don't utilize their parking lots as much in the evening hours as they do during the regular business day. We already have some of those agreements in place in the past. We're going to revisit an agreement that we had previously with one of our downtown churches and hopefully look at some additional. But we've identified every possible parking space that's located in the downtown. In addition to that, we've also identified the potential location for parking structures if we need those and if we need to provide some additional parking in the future. As well as the study took into account the fact that the first basically phase of parking for the South Shore Double Track project will provide 500 spaces of structured parking located basically 2 blocks, 2.5 blocks away from the plaza. So we definitely, and also the report took a look at suggestions for different ways to manage parking. So we have that study that we can use as a basis for understanding parking. But if we need to update that, now that it's been a few years, we can do that. But we've definitely taken parking into account. So yeah.
Well, and needing a lot of parking would be a good thing for us. So
Yes, and another thing I have to ask for the seniors, and during the summertime, and the outdoor shuffleboard games, which is really popular, becoming really popular all over. I know it is in Florida and other summer states, but that's something to present and make sure that they have something there for the seniors.
Absolutely.
and I think that's the value of having the board also, because there will be select representatives on the board from a broad base of the community to make sure that we get ongoing input relative to the use of the plaza to maximize its use all
Absolutely.
the time.
And through the process, the very concerted effort that we did for community outreach through the help of Hubert Morgan with Stanhope Consulting, we did receive a lot of input from various representatives of different organizations representing different populations, whether it was the seniors, whether it was the people who represent those that are disabled, you name it. We've connected with them, but we'll take that suggestion into consideration, of course.
Commissioner comments or questions?
I know there's a real request from the community for a roller rink, and you've incorporated roller skating, which seems to be much more popular than ice skating for whatever reasons in our area. And you mentioned spring and fall. Could there still be roller skating throughout the summer? I think that the groups that are requesting that in the community kind of want to see it as much as possible. Obviously, you can't do it in the winter when you would go and transport. It sounded like there was a gap possibly there. That would concern me.
I think where we have it located, Mayor, is kind of right in the center of the space, and so that space during the summer is where we're looking at doing all the concerts and other types of events. Now we could look at locating it somewhere else or shifting it over to the side or something, but I think most of the activity will be during those summer months, and so we want to make sure that space is as open and as flexible as possible. So
the space that the roller rink occupies is basically what's called sport court. It can be moved.
Yeah.
It can be picked up and moved, to a different location within the site. So it's flexible. Basically, it's pieces that come, that come together to create the surface.
yeah,
So-
we could continue to look at
I
that.
think we strongly need to look at that because of the requests from a large portion of the community, and just that we can have it as many months as possible. So we need to probably look at that closely.
And also on that, roller skating inside is what we really need, a roller skating ring inside.
That might be more for the private sector.
I don't know.
All right, other questions or comments from the commissioners? So we will be taking some specific action this evening. Unless somebody in the audience has a burning question, I'm going to suggest we reserve the public comment for our workshop, which will be on
June 24th.
June 24th.
At 6 p.m. Here at City Hall, and it's going to be a joint workshop between the City Council and Redevelopment Commission. And we're going to give an expanded presentation, more than what's been presented this evening, and a little bit more detail, especially about what's happened with other plaza spaces in other communities and the work that Dan Sempner's done in some of those communities and things like that. So,
Okay.
but yeah, we can.
Yeah, so, I mean,
There'll be more
let me toss
opportunity.
it.
Definitely have
Yeah,
more
there'll be more
opportunities
opportunity
for
for more in-depth, but if
questions
there
and
is
public
anybody
input.
in the audience that would love to jump up right now, glad to hear it, because we definitely want this to be an open community process and don't want to close off any genuine discussion about what could be a great place.
And this is only the first step in the two meetings that the Redevelopment Commission
Yes, it
is
is.
having as part of the approval process for this before it moves on to City Council.
So this evening, in a few minutes, we'll be likely taking some action up or down relative to support for the bonding process for it. So I'm not seeing anybody from the public jumping up. So we'll reserve the public comment for the workshop on the 24th. Any other questions from the commission? Well, thank you, Joel.
Thank you.
Rick, so nice to have you join us here. It's much appreciated. Great work. So to the specific action, do you want to have Randy come up?
Yeah, so
or-
I'll defer to Attorney Rampolla. He'll go through, I think, the specific actions that we need to take this evening with regard to some of the paperwork associated with the bonding process.
Right. So, good evening, Randy Rampolla with Barnes & Thornburg with offices over in South Bend. The specific action before you tonight is an initial resolution number 2-19, that provides preliminary approval of the form of lease that's been presented to you. As Andy mentioned in the earlier session, the financing for the Civic Plaza is structured to be a lease financing, and I'll let Andy speak to anything he wants to on the financing side of the project. But the lease would be, again, a redevelopment authority, redevelopment commission lease. The redevelopment commission would lease the project from the authority during the term of the bond financing. Redevelopment Commission would pay a lease rental then to the authority. That lease rental then would be used to pay the debt service on the bonds that are proposed to be issued. So the bonds actually would be issued by the redevelopment authority. What you would be doing is approving the form of the lease and then ultimately making the lease rental payments to the redevelopment authority. The rental payments would be proposed to be paid from TIF revenue, as Andy indicated, but there would be a tax backup to provide the best interest rate in the market on the bond. So, but wouldn't expect to use that, and as Andy can speak to, that there's not really, there would never need to be a need for that based on the current TIF projections. The lease before you is for a not to exceed 22-year term. Presently, it has a maximum annual lease rental of $975,000 a year during that term. That is the maximum lease rental, and the lease does contain language that once the bonds are sold, that lease rental would be reduced to match the debt service on the bonds. So you would only pay in rental what ultimately is needed to pay the debt service on the bonds and nothing more. The lease would be for the project. So once we close on the bonds, the redevelopment authority would take title to the underlying real estate that would become the project and then lease that back to the redevelopment commission. The process, I will say, is the next steps. So there is the workshop, but tonight you would be adopting the resolution to preliminary approve the lease and also set a public hearing. So the redevelopment commission itself would hold a public hearing, and that is scheduled tentatively for July 8th. And at that time, or in conjunction with that meeting, the redevelopment authority likely would meet as well to take some actions on the approving the lease and authorizing the issuance of the bonds. If the commission acts tonight, and if the commission and the authority act in July, then the next step would be, as was mentioned, go to the Common Council for its approval, and then back to the redevelopment authority and the commission for a final action relating to the bonds and the lease itself. We would anticipate that we could sell and close bonds in the fall in line with the construction schedule. I think we have to flesh out the back end of the schedule, but the approval process would be through the council either at a meeting in July or shortly thereafter, later in July. I'm happy to answer any questions. I don't know if Andy, if you want to speak to the financing specifically.
I guess, just briefly, I would add, the numbers are, in that presentation I passed out earlier, I also passed out the updated bonding capacity and cash flow analysis, which is what we went through last month. We did update that to allow for additional costs for the design and engineering fees. So on page 4 and 5 of that presentation, you would see what we anticipate the financing would look like. So the parameters you would be approving tonight, and then in the form of the lease, would be a little bit higher than where we currently anticipate the financing will come in. You'd be approving a $8.8 million bond issue. We've got current costs at right around $8.3 million with all financing costs included. As Randy mentioned, the max lease rental would be not to exceed $975,000 per year. In our current estimate, those would not exceed $800,000 per year. So it gives a little bit of cushion on the project cost side of things, and then also interest rates, the financing structure. If those would move, it gives you a little bit of cushion with your initial approvals as well.
So net proceeds from the bond for us to use on the plaza
Would be $7 million,
$7 million.
which would be the $6 million for construction and then another $1 million for design and engineering.
So, any questions from the commissioners? This is the first step in the process, so what's the pleasure of the commission? You want to move ahead?
Specifically, is request for the adoption of resolution 2.
Correct.
I'd make such a motion.
Support.
Motion seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I didn't hear too many ayes. Did everybody say aye? I just want to make sure. All right, thank you. I know it's getting a little late this evening, or my hearing's going bad, so thank you. All right, so I'm in favor, of course, too. So anyone opposed? Didn't hear anyone opposed. So, all right, we've taken the first step in financing our downtown plaza project. More to come.
And we've set the public hearing date for July 8th, which is our next regular scheduled redevelopment commission meeting.
Okay, and the workshop was scheduled for June
joint
24th.
workshop for June 24th at 6 p.m. And we have a couple of other housekeeping, or one other housekeeping item we need to take care of. Joel, do you want to join us again for the contract amendment discussion so that we can handle that?
Yeah, let's get the plaza stuff all wrapped up
Yeah.
now. Right.
Everything regarding the plaza. So as part of the process for part of the approval process, we would like to be able to bring Dan Semfner with Destination Rapid City Incorporated back to help with the presentations on the 24th and at the introduction to the council on July 16th. And so we received a proposal from him. We apologize, we don't have the document in front of you, but basically it would be for those 2 trips. So 2 full days plus travel associated with that. And Joel, do you remember the amount to not to exceed?
$9,400.
Was $9,400 for the 2 trips.
Includes his fee and his reimbursement.
Includes his fees, reimbursables, travel,
And
any meetings that time for meetings we have those 2 days.
And we think his input is critical to the credibility of the operation of the plaza. And so it's actually been operating one of these plazas for 6, 7, some number of years. Has certainly
Over 10 years, I think.
over 10 years,
Yeah.
and at least knows what works and what is more of a challenge.
So again, it's yeah.
So we need
It would be an amendment to the current contract with Hitchcock Design Group to add that amount not to exceed $9,400 to that contract to cover those costs.
It's a pleasure of the commission.
How much move forward with it?
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, looking forward
I think
to an
that's it with
exciting
regard to the plaza
presentation.
for now.
Right, on the 24th.
Yep, so we'll move back up to...
Yeah, let's move up to item number 6. Thank you for your patience, by the way, on the liquor license request from Mucho Mas. Alan, would you like to start the discussion?
This is the carryover from last month. Attorney Novak made a presentation with regards to a liquor license and went into detail on that for as to the basis for, or as the reason for that, and again, I don't know that I could add anything more to what Anthony said last month. Anthony, I'm sorry. It was tabled last month to give the commission time to look at the application itself. And I don't think, we've had a little brief conversation last week, but other than that, I don't think we're just waiting on the commission at this point to question you as to any concerns that may be included within the documentation.
Okay, Commissioner Oberly was the person on the committee with you. So, Commissioner Oberly, any comments or? Okay, sure, please.
Good evening, everyone. Anthony Novak, Newby, Lewis, Kaminsky, and Jones. I was here last month. I appreciate the time that you guys gave me. As Mr. Cernick indicated, not much to add beyond that presentation. Just simply a reminder that this program, it's an economic development tool that's used to revitalize the downtown area, to try and bring more foot traffic to the area and incentivize the business to invest down there, and hoping that the establishment can be unique and long-lasting. So we believe that Mucho Mas and Royale is that. We think it's a great transition from just talking about the community plaza, which is our hope that the restaurant will no longer just be, the restaurant and the meal is no longer the destination, but the first stop of many. So I'm certainly here to answer any questions that you may have, as is Frank, and I believe Mike Connor, who's the owner of the building, where Mucho Mas is located, could certainly talk if there's any questions. So we would ask for your support. And thank you for allowing us to make this presentation.
All right. Any question? Oh, Commissioner Oberly, you want to lead?
I don't have specific questions. Again, I think they've been very cooperative in meeting with the committee, providing the necessary information. They've demonstrated a commitment to the area and to the community with what they've done to date. The area that I look at within the rules of operations, if you will, is the one that talks in terms of trying to assist local talented restaurant owners to achieve success. And I think providing the liquor license, in this case, would enhance both locations, give them the ability to attract people on a longer term basis, and to also then bring more families down for a longer stay. So I think it's in our best interest to proceed.
All right. Why don't we move ahead with the, decision of the commission, and we'll have some further discussion. So, would you like to make a motion, Commissioner Oberly, or something else?
I move to approve the request.
Support.
That's
Seconded.
plural for both.
All right. Any further discussion from the commissioners?
Have they been approved by excise to put a liquor license there as of yet? And you have to live, being a... Huh?
No.
Oh, so...
Process is we started here, goes to the
Misunderstanding
mayor's
my
office. The mayor's office is the one that recommends it, and then Anthony takes that down to the liquor license and go for approval at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioner questions or comments? All right. Now this one, I'm going to do a little bit different than we have done some other stuff. I know that this can be a sensitive issue in our community, and if there's anyone here from the public that would like to make a comment or question, I know Councilman Stimley mentioned something to us at our last meeting, and I think before we take a vote, it'd be good to hear.
Yeah, some of the concerns I have about distributing the liquor license, and one of these is, like you said, I know one of the liquor laws which will go in front of excise would be the approximation to a church or a school with the liquor license. I don't know if that has anything to do with the redevelopment's recommendation for it.
Johnny, just so you know, that included within their packet were recommendations from two of the churches on adjoining property that supported their application, and also went out of their way to praise the good neighbors that they have with the guy sitting in the back. So it's been addressed.
I mean, even though it's a recommendation from the church or the thing, I still think it's a state law. I'm not sure if that holds any ground to it or not.
They're allowed to ask for a waiver through that process by getting support letters from those entities.
Okay.
That's part of the state statute.
All right. I believe when you issue these riverfront license to, what it was proposed for too was the Blossoms area, blue chip. I really think you're giving out too many. You're watering it down for the city. I feel it's not good for the business owners that do have these licenses throughout the city. Every time I go somewhere, I hear it. And I don't think it's good also to give the same person 2 licenses. I wouldn't like to see that also. So those are some of my concerns I do have about this. And I just wanted to address it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. So on the 2 persons, can you clarify that, Alan?
As I recall, they're 2 separate corporations, correct? So we have Mucho Mas and right. So they are 2 different corporations, and both are registered with the Secretary of State's office that way.
But is it
They
the
have
same
to,
owner?
if they were just one organization, we would only be giving out one liquor license if they were, for example, under the same umbrella by a unified name. But the fact that they have 2 different corporations based on the 2 different entities and thereby have separation of their assets and liabilities, regardless of who the owner may be or regardless of who the registered agent may be, the fact that they are 2 separate entities, the only way they can make the application for us and subsequently make the application to the state for the liquor license has to be through the 2 different through the 2 different entities. So I don't know, we're kind of hamstrung on that one.
Okay, but it's basically the same owner.
I'm sorry?
It's basically the same owner.
Well, 2 different entities. On
Yeah.
paper, on pragmatically, you're probably correct, but on paper, no. It's 2 different liquor licenses and 2 different owners and 2 different corporations.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? All right. Further commission comments?
Yes, I do have one. How many more of these are we going to distribute throughout the community? I know it's based to help and bring people down to the northern end, but originally when these licenses started in Michigan City, you were supposed to have an investment of $400,000 to $500,000 in order to get one. I'm a former bar and restaurant owner for 20 years, so I was on the other side when these licenses were given out. So I kind of know how it is for us bar owners that we have hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in the community, and we pay taxes and we own our buildings, and we already struggle, and the liquor laws are already tough enough to where the businesses are already down, and then you give it away to people uptown to where the north end is being really, pushed. You kind of forget about everybody else on the other side of town when it comes to restaurant and bar owners, when it comes to the summertime. So, I think, I'm not saying they don't deserve it. I think, there should be more of investment into it, not just open the doors. I've seen ads already on buildings that are downtown that are for rent, and they're advertising, oh, there's a liquor license available. Well, I mean, come on. I mean, we worked hard for our licenses, and I worked hard for mine when I had it. And I know what everybody goes through. I know what the owners go through nowadays. And I'm not saying they don't deserve one if they go out and buy one or find one or get a 2-way license and start somewhere. That's how I started. I started with a 2-way, then I worked my way up to a 3-way. But to let them go for $1,000, I don't think it's fair. I think we're forgetting about the little guy and the little businessman in this town that has worked his butt off to make it, than to have to compete with guys that could really, they don't own a building, they're just renting, they could pull up and leave, and they don't lose, but we lose everything if we go out of business. And that's just my opinion, speaking for some of the bar owners in Michigan City and restaurant owners. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate that. Other commissioner comments? Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, so just a couple of comments on what the redevelopment commission, Mr. Pawlowski, his comments on investment in the area. Part of the difficulty of having a business down at the north end of Franklin Street versus somewhere in the south end of town or on a higher traffic count area is traffic, quite frankly, right? You suffer from not enough traffic downtown. And Frank, when I courted him out of LaPorte, wasn't easy. And Frank spent quite a bit of money building out his space in the first floor of 727 Franklin when I bought that building. So everything you see in that space, pretty much Frank built out himself, and he paid for that in exchange for a long-term lease. I think the lease might be 12 or 15 years. So his investment in that space alone might be $100,000 in a space he doesn't own. So in many regards, Frank has taken more risk than buying a building somewhere where you would have that asset at the end of the day. He doesn't have that asset, he's leasing. Royale is the same way. So I get the issue with the liquor licenses, but for somebody who is already expressed an aptitude and has taken a lot of risk by opening up not just one restaurant, but two, and successfully done that, all of that sort of has to be built upon, and growth is growth, right? Anybody that's successful downtown that expands to the entire city, more traffic, more people coming here. So I disagree slightly with the Redevelopment Commission members' comments on risk and investment in the area. They have a lot of experience in the area, and they've already invested a ton of money in both of the buildings and have long-term leases there and have a commitment to stay. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me go to Commissioner Sheets, and then we'll see if there's anyone else from the public who wants to comment.
As far as this investment, I mean, if I remember correctly, the two applications, he had a total of $65,000 invested in the building. That was it, all that I saw. And I do remember when these first came out, and yes, I am a bar owner in this town, a restaurant owner. When these first came out, there was a number out there, and unless it's been changed, it was a $500,000 investment in an existing building or new building. It wasn't Alan, it wasn't the original bylaws, because I have a copy of them.
I've never seen them.
That when it originally came out in 2008.
Preceded me and have all the documents that I have. I've never seen them.
Like I said, if it was amended, then I am wrong today. But as far as I know, it wasn't amended to change.
All right, thank you. Any other commissioner comments? Any other members of the public want to comment? All right. What's the pleasure of the commission? Oh, we've already moved and seconded.
A second.
So let's call the vote. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, it's 2-2. So I guess it's going to come down to one more vote, and this is why you have a chairperson. So, I may lose some friends on this, but first of all, I do believe in the sincere comments and dialogue that we have here. These aren't easy decisions. I do rest a little bit of my comfort in making the decision I'm going to make relative to what we've seen in the improvement of property values, and also other establishments that are interested in coming to our city and growing in our city, as well as even the whole premise of the state legislature and its wisdom in granting these type of licenses along not only the riverfront but also downtown areas. And there's been significant success around the state with the issuing of more liquor licenses to create a better place for people to come and recreate. And I also pretty confident, and I certainly do this at different points in time, that when people come to town, they don't always just go to one establishment. They like a variety where they might be able to go or not, and it does make a difference. I do appreciate the hard work of people that started their business, and there was a different set of rules then that had to go through. But given all that, I'm going to vote in favor of the liquor license being offered to these two new entities. So thank you very much for your participation. Good job, Anthony.
We certainly appreciate it, and we certainly understand your comments as well. So I know Frank is certainly invested in this community, and will certainly use it for good.
Just so you know, there's no hard feelings. That's how I voted today. I wish that gentleman good luck, whatever they do.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Believe me, and so do I.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Let's move on to perhaps a less controversial section. Ohio Street update from Rich Deal or Chris Murphy.
Good evening, Commissioners. Chris Murphy with Structure Point, substituting for Rich Deal with Structure Point this evening. I did note the agenda that the Trail Creek Bridge project wasn't listed, and I thought I'd have the night off, but
yeah, we didn't have anything else to, besides approving the payment.
Right.
As part of the claim docket. We have so much on the agenda. We thought we could wait a month for the, discussion on the railings
understand
and all that. So
I'll be brief.
No offense.
I appreciate that. Thank you. We have completed the punch list on the Ohio Street project. There were a number of items that the contractor needs to complete before we can provide a final acceptance of the project. And that work is ongoing with the contractor. going down the list of punch list items. We have worked with the contractor with regard to the manhole castings to clear them out and so that they set appropriately. The cover sets in the casting itself to eliminate some of the wobble that was out there as the castings were reset with the concrete collar. And the report I have is that they're in much better, more stable condition after that work was complete. And then the last item I have on my list is the spring flooding that overflow from adjacent property would run across the sidewalk into the street continuously during the winter. We have effected improvements. The contractor's completed that construction, and it has improved that situation to practical elimination of that water running across the sidewalk. We're collecting it directly into the storm drainage system now with the installation of additional storm drainage at that location. So that should be a completed item also to take care of that problem. That's the update.
Related, a little unrelated to that, so that all sounds like great. The street project's on track. Relative to some of the other projects with the sanitary district, are you familiar with how close we are to the total budget relative to the bond?
We have an estimate of that, yeah.
We do, and I will just note generally that the Ohio Street project has had some additional costs, but there also have been some deducts on it. So the overall final added cost to the Ohio Street project has been within the contingency that we had planned for.
So it's within the bond.
So I think we are in good, even considering the other sanitary district improvements out there. I think we're within the limits of our budget.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Chris, how much is on that punch list that's yet remains to be completed? Is a lot on it, or?
Actually, for the size project that it is,
yeah, no, it wasn't. You look at the list and 90 some odd items, but a number of them are still outstanding for the contractor to complete. It's still a work. I don't know exactly, Mayor, how many.
Street markings and painting is one of them?
Pavement markings are one of them.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
All right. Questions, comments?
And as part of the project also, we could also state that we had the ability to extend the culvert at the Strebel Arm, or the Kinsel Arm of the Strebel Arm of Kinsel Ditch, to allow for the expansion of one of our local businesses, to facilitate the expansion of one of our local businesses with Hearthside
nice.
Foods.
Well, that's right. That's
For
right.
the
Right. Yeah.
passage between the north and south, parts of their
that was
facility.
a big deal for them, I know.
So that
for
was
sure.
another. It was another benefit of the Ohio Street project. So we facilitated the further expansion of that local employer with the project as well.
So don't we have some? Where's Microbore going?
They're down on the Ohio Street properties. I don't know if our project facilitated anything with that.
I'm just curious where they're going.
I think
It's
they're
in
also
that corridor, though.
It's in the Ohio Street corridor.
Okay. Great.
But I wanted to specifically mention the Hearthside. Their expansion was facilitated by our project being able to cover the cost of extending that the size of that culvert.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Well done. So let's see, Washington Park. I guess Craig, are you going to take this one?
No, there's. I'm sorry, and I forget the name of the gentleman who's with us this evening from SEH, but we have a representative from SEH this evening.
I was going to say, I didn't see Jay. So.
Update.
Yeah, unfortunately, Jay is out of town tonight, so I'm here filling in for him. I'm Glenn Peterson, a project engineer with SEH. Just to give you guys a quick update, I'm passing out a progress report for the overall project in addition to the parking lot as well. There were a couple agenda items today in relation to pay applications and certificate of substantial completion for the west parking lot project. That project is now complete. The contractor has completed their punch list. The only thing that we do have remaining is that there were six trees that were planted in the parking lot that didn't survive this past winter's hardships. Those are warranty items. Those will be replaced. Slussers, who did the original landscaping there, they did submit a maintenance proposal to the Port Authority to participate in a 2-year maintenance window. I believe Port Authority is going to be accepting that the next go around here. So other than that, that project is complete. As far as the traffic circle and the other Washington Park parking lot or the Washington Park improvements, we are nearing completion of the 100% plans. Those will be completed at some point during this month, at which point we'll get together with the commission and decide how to move forward.
So we're gonna have a little celebration with the mayor and all that stuff down there?
Yeah, if you guys would like to have a ribbon cutting of the parking lot down there, we'd be more than happy to facilitate setting that up.
I think we should get on the mayor's schedule and figure out when that's a good thing to do.
Okay.
Then
Get the Port Authority get the Port Authority and Harbor
Yeah.
Country Ventures involved in that as well.
So the approximate time for that would be, when's good?
Next couple weeks here. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, before 4th of July, big, whatever works for you guys. So
Nice.
we'll be in touch and get that taken care of.
Well, I'm glad we got the tree guarantee worked out. So
Yep.
that was a challenging issue for
Yeah,
us.
yeah. The last part was the topsoil removal of the topsoil that's going to be held on site for future phases. With the timing not really kind of being unknown here, we decided that the city decided it was best to haul that off site as well too. So.
Okay.
So we have the acceptance of the certificate of substantial completion that we need to complete this evening. You got a copy of that in your packets. Starts with the words section 009410. On the second page of that, you'll notice there's a list of, I believe, 10 items, just 10 remaining items that need to be addressed. Otherwise, it's considered to be substantial completion by the definition of the project. So we'll definitely need the commission to take official action to approve the certificate of substantial completion this evening.
Right. What's the pleasure of the commission?
Move to approve the contract for substantial completion.
Seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Thanks.
Some Jamie missed, but you did a good job.
One question on the topsoil.
Yes, sir.
Where did it go?
That went to central services to
Okay.
be used for
Yeah.
other projects.
Just need
throughout
to know
the
where
city.
it's at when we're
Yep.
looking for. Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Yeah.
Good idea. All right, Mr. Saranac. Item 11.
As I filled you in on last month with regards to where we are on the Trail Creek litigation, we've dismissed we've reached agreement on some of the defendants. And I would also add to that, remember we dismissed some of the individual family members of Aaroncraft based on settlements were received and that we received additional, and then we were securing additional information as to other family members who own that, and I can tell you that the motion has been filed to modify the original complaint to include those as defendants. There's a hearing on July 18th, in which to take that matter up. The trial is still scheduled for October 21st. As to the August MAC request or change order, where we were on the mediation, basically we got agreements on some of the defendants, but the big polluter obviously is Bagley. And so we were not able to reach an agreement during the initial mediation because of conflicting statements and conflicting opinions between both experts. On June 27th, we will have another mediation session with both experts as well as the insurance company for Begley, and hopefully, well, that'll be the last attempt, I think, at some kind of settlement. So the purpose of this change order then is to allow August Mack and specifically Jeff Glanders to come to that, to prepare for and come to that mediation and work on our behalf towards a settlement.
And the amount?
$9,000.
$9,000. All right. What's the pleasure of the commission? So, and you might describe again why we need August Mack specifically.
Right. August Mack has been an expert for us since the original contract was in February 2018, originally from the viewpoint to able to provide their expertise in showing where the contamination went from the original source located at the original Bagley plant at 11th and Michigan, and then going across the street and going down through that contaminated area. They then provided that second expert opinion as to that. It was also during that period of time that they discovered this plume under the residential area, and that led to then the vapor intrusion studies for the various residents that were there. That was part of their previous change orders. So obviously they have great familiarity with this site, this litigation, both on the expected as well as the unexpected. And so we need them then at this mediation to give their expert opinion that they will also be giving a trial in the event we are not able to settle this.
Okay, so we need this credible witness to help prove our case.
To assist
Hopefully settle
to
with
assist,
this number.
right, to assist with the mediation of, and it costs us
Move
$9,000.
to approve, Mr. Chairman.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And Mr. Phillips, I think you had something here for.
Yeah, just briefly, and then we need to do the addendum items.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, we have the
Yes.
other supplemental.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So mine will be
I was
real
going to say I
quick.
was a little short here. Okay.
No, there's some people out here in the audience who would be pretty disappointed if
Thank
we didn't
you.
cover those items.
Thanks.
Just real briefly, as part of the claims this evening, you approved the work that was done by Great Lakes Engineering and Thate, land surveying to do a wetlands delineation on Cleveland Avenue. I just passed out a copy of the delineation to you and the attached invoice just to show you what we approved on the claims agenda, but it was a change that was decided in the field when we were out on site with the consultants, and we need to take the official action to approve the dollar amount, the $6,200. $6,200 for that work that was done in order to process the sale of the property, the offer for sale of the property.
So this would be work required, whether we have a potential buyer or not, for potential future sale.
Correct.
Right.
So I just asked for approval of the $6,200 for Thate GLE for the wetland delineation on the Cleveland Ave property.
All right. What's the pleasure of the commission?
Move to support. I'm sorry. Move to approve.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. So, and the timing on this to actually clear everything up is pretty quick, right? If we did want to dispose of it, or if we did have a buyer, because we announced this, right?
We're in the process of considering this item as we speak, so we're currently in the process of
Still in
negotiations.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so going to the next page here.
Addendum 1.
Yes. Refunding of 2010 Lafayette Barker bonds. So we had our bond counsel there earlier. Who do you want to start this with? Randy?
I'll defer to Mr. Rampola on this, and Mr. Mauser, the two of them collectively, if they want to explain. We have an opportunity basically for some potential savings on the Lafayette Barker sewer bond, and they can explain the opportunity that we have currently as a result of that.
Sure. The bonds are presently outstanding. I'll let Andy go into the details, but effectively you have the ability to refund those bonds and issue new bonds currently at a lower interest rate. And when I speak about refundings, I liken it to refunding or refinancing a mortgage. If you go to the bank and you have your house rate at 8% and now the rate's at 5%, you can refinance at 5% and basically lower your monthly payment on the mortgage. That's effectively what you would be doing with the bond issue. You would be refinancing the bonds with the current interest rates and achieving those savings. And we would only move forward on the refinancing if there is a savings, and currently there is projected to be a savings. The process is similar to issuing new bonds in the sense that it does that also was a lease financing involving the redevelopment authority and the commission. So each body would meet, approve the initial actions. It would go to the common council. The common council would also have to approve the refunding, and would come back then, and then we would move forward with the refunding itself. It's a little bit quicker than going through the process for new money, as we're talking about with the Civic Plaza, because you don't have the existing lease is already in place. We don't have to go through that whole lease approval process. So with that, and we did, I had circulated a schedule to Craig, and so we can start that at the July 8th meeting as well. So you'd be starting the new money lease approval process at the same time you'd be doing the refunding, so you can see the benefit of doing the refunding. You would achieve some savings, and at that point I'll turn it over to Andy, who can speak more specifically to the savings.
And I know we spoke briefly on this at the May meeting as well, so just to kind of reiterate on those discussions, the interest rates on your current 2010 Lafayette Barker bonds range from 4.1% all the way out to 5%. So net interest costs on the remaining structure maybe around 4.5%. And based on current interest rates, we think that rate could be lowered to around 2.9%. So pretty substantial savings. Be looking at about maybe $55,000 per year over the remaining life of the bonds. Those bonds go through 2033, so still several years out for those savings to accumulate. So you'd be looking at a net present value benefit of a little under $600,000 over the remaining life of the financing. So,
Okay. And the specific action this evening is to start the process? Or?
Give the approval to begin the process at the July 8th meeting.
It doesn't change the duration of the bond in any
No.
shape, man. I don't think it's a
we're
lot
currently
more.
spending about $750,000 a year.
So it would save us about $55,000.
correct. Same term of the
It's like
bonds.
a no-brainer.
So, and that would help us with some of these other projects. So what's the pleasure of the commission?
I second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And we'd love to have 55,000 more. Thank you. Good work. All right, and then Singing Sands Phase 2. Craig, you want to lead this, I guess?
Yeah, so this is pretty simple. You have a copy of a document in your packets that says supplemental services, our supplemental agreement number 3 for design services. What this is essentially is, as we've gone through the process of negotiating with the EPA and IDEM on the revisions to the use agreement for the Waste Inc. property on Highway 12, just to the south of the Van Air facility. It's our intention for the Singing Sands Trail Phase 2 to go along Trail Creek in that area. As part of that, we've had extensive conversations with regard to the stability of the soils on the site and the way in which the trail is routed through the site, and that resulted in the requirement for some revisions and reroute, as well as some further geotechnical work that had to be done, some soil exploration. And so that resulted in the additional expenditure of about $29,000. Total costs for everything, including engineering services, geotechnical work, the additional costs related to that. So what Butler, Fairman, and Seifert is asking for is a supplemental agreement to allow for the approval of that additional $29,000 for the work that was completed, or was required to be completed as a part of those negotiations with EPA and IDEM on the project.
Okay, and you might give it, Craig. So Singing Sands Phase 1 will be started this fall.
We'll be likely breaking ground on Singing Sands Phase 1 in sometime in July or August, with construction complete by the basically beginning of the season next year.
That goes from the Porter County line.
That goes from the Porter County line where the current trailhead is for the Calumet Trail, parallels roughly Highway 12 here and there, up to City Hall. And then Phase 2 will take off from there and head from City Hall to the intersection of Michigan Boulevard and Highway 12, and follow Michigan Boulevard out to 8th Street. It'll then follow 8th Street out east along the land adjacent to and kind of through the sanitary district property. It'll cross over what's known as the Peanut Bridge, which currently is located within Winding Creek Cove Park. and it'll cross the Trail Creek there, and then head over from there into the wasting property, where it'll follow the trail on the follow the creek on the north side around to Liberty Trail, and that's the end of phase 2.
So that makes sense to me. So I hope some of you have been on the Peanut Bridge. So Waste Inc., just when you get over the Peanut Bridge, it's on the right-hand east side. And it'd be great to have that trail run through there. That'd be wonderful. All right, so...
And we anticipate this hopefully going to project letting in November.
Okay.
So this is, we're nearing the final stages of the approval process with the EPA and IDEMS.
Great. All right, it's a pleasure to the Commission. Looking for authorization for an additional $29,000 for supplemental services for Seeing Sands Phase 2.
I would move for the authorization.
I'll second.
Seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. All right, and so we have one more item. Former Memorial Hospital site. Mr. Phillips.
Okay, so as part of the process, as we explained previously, the Commission has had to shift gears in terms of the redevelopment of the Memorial Hospital site, and as part of that process, it's necessary for us to field proposals from additional developer opportunities, and that's a complex process. So we have previously successfully worked with Neighborhood Capital Institute and other partners to take a look at some preliminary analysis with regard to the station block in the vicinity of the South Shore Station at 11th Street, for example. And because they had done such good work for us on that process, we wanted to bring Neighborhood Capital Institute in to manage the process of working with developer proposals on the Memorial Hospital site, and of which there's quite a bit of interest already from what we gather. And so in order to ensure a fair and even process as we go forward with that, it's helpful to have somebody that can help us facilitate conversations with developers. And so we're entertaining a proposal from Neighborhood Capital Institute, and the total cost of that is an amount not to exceed $37,730, which includes all the fees associated with the consulting as well as reimbursables and contingencies. With that, I will defer to Ruth Warrenmuth from Neighborhood Capital Institute to talk to us a little bit more about the work we have done and the work we intend to do going forward. So,
Commissioner, Mayor, Commissioners, I'm Ruth Warrenmuth. I'm just really delighted to be able to have a chance to work with Michigan City again. This is, it was exciting the last time I was before this board, and it just keeps continuing to be more so. So I think that this being able to and as Craig described us, NCI, we're organized as a 501c3 with really deep real estate experience across the board. And I think what our largest value is to help you find the strongest pool of potential developers that can take full advantage of that amazing asset and all of its potential, and do it in a way that stimulates demand among the quality of developers that can take it through to a very solid conclusion. I think the site speaks for itself. You all know better than certainly I do about its value, but the fact that you can now position that site not only as within 0.4 miles of the transit block and the continued excitement about what is in the offing for the double tracking, but that you're, you're adjacent to the Elston Grove Historic District. You're 1 block away from the Franklin Park District. You are now within 0.6 miles of a national park. There is so much going for you right now that I think this is a perfect reset time to put this out to the market and to find a very strong pool of developers who understand that Michigan City is really a hub within a very significant region along Lake Michigan's South Shore. So we have a very simple process. It's not rocket science, but if you don't get it right, it won't launch. And so I think we do our thing. It's described in the proposal. Our goal is to be able to reactivate that site as quickly as possible. And so we've got a pretty strenuous schedule, and we may not, things may slip, and we'll be working with staff on this, but we tested our process to make sure that we could actually do our work so that the city would be prepared to perhaps make an announcement of a selected developer by Labor Day. That's our goal. That's what we do, is to sort of help accelerate rational investment in the marketplace. And we feel privileged to be invited back and would love to be able to work on this with you.
All right, questions from commissioners?
How realistic is Labor Day as a? I mean, that's pretty aggressive.
It is. I think. Well, the proposal that's before we responded. We wanted to be able to make sure that we could do it. We've got a really tight team. Within our team now, we've got someone who's got a career. I mean, he is considered the dean of real estate development and development finance, and he's got a strong brokerage background. I think having someone of that caliber makes me comfortable that that the schedule that we've committed to, if things fall right, we can do it. I mean, you've got a very activated market. We've got a simple but very focused process, and our team feels comfortable that we can do so.
We've also done a lot of work up ahead of this, as far as the information gathering and bringing this team up to date on all the factors involved with the site, providing all the drawings, providing all the numbers.
Yeah.
All that's already been done, so they're basically ready to hit the ground running with the actual RFP process.
Yeah, forgive me. I should have said that the staff you have is just amazing. We've been briefed. We've got materials ready to go. So we just run a process, and we build on what the city has already set up for us.
All right, so and I don't know, other commissioner comments or questions or. So I'll toss a couple items out, I guess. I know we have at least 3 developers interested right now, and they at least verbally seem to have the credibility to actually be able to pull a project off. And I'm assuming that at the end of the process, you're going to make a recommendation.
The very first thing that we will do is work with staff as well as work with others involved to create a really powerful list of a maximum of 10 developers that represent the full space. Because you cannot deny, I mean, part of the value of Michigan City is that you're also part of the macro Chicago region. So we're going to make sure that we have a mix of developers, qualified developers that are local, as well as from Chicago and as well as from the state of Indiana, perhaps delving into Indianapolis. So we will take the names that have already shown interest. We will buffer the staff from those people trying to, that's their right to try and persuade. We will then interview each of those one-on-one during the month of July, and then during the month of August, we will arrange a presentation. We will invite the three top ones that we will make recommendations as to the top 3, and we'll invite them to make a presentation to a panel of your choosing, and then from that, and we will guide that process. We will allow you to do apples to apples comparisons on the financial implications of each of the 3 selected, so that you may not decide by Labor Day, but our goal is to give you the tools to make sure that you're getting the best alternative, the best choice for Michigan City.
So one of the challenges we have on virtually every project is to get the clarity on the financials in terms of the expectations from the community, as well as the developer, whoever else is partnering, wherewithal, and clarity from them in terms of what they're going to invest and also what they're going to borrow against or whatever hurdles they have to overcome, whether it's a market study or some criteria their financial institution has to run through. So.
That's absolutely critical. There's no time to waste, and we will force them to make those disclosures in the month of August. So.
All right, so what's the pleasure of the commission? I guess the request is for
$37,730.
Not to exceed.
Not to exceed.
Well, you want to approve the engagement letter that Ruth is submitting to the council, to the commission.
Okay.
Move to approve.
and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you
Well,
so
I
much.
think you might add to it, Ruth, in terms of at least our initial discussion with you, and as part of the community dialogue is, in a way, we're changing horses here. And I think one of the key things for the community to understand is that investment the city's made in the property will be used in a very similar project by somebody else that's going to take it through to fruition. Is that your view also?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you are presenting to the selected developer, the ultimate and shovel-ready opportunities. And so it's in many ways in the future you may look back on this reset as being just a really, fortuitous timing. So
That's great to hear. All right, any questions, comments? Thank you. All right, we're winding down here, getting to the very end. Report by legal counsel.
Just the only thing to report is before this meeting, we did have an executive session. No items were discussed. Contrary to the open door law, no decisions were made.
All right. And report by the director.
I don't believe I have anything else to report this evening, thankfully.
All right. And public comments? Anybody from the public? See Mr. Radke.
Hello, Dan Radke from Pioneer Pier, and I just wanted to take a second to thank the commission, everybody involved in the growth and the development of this city. I think it's overwhelmingly spectacular, and I appreciate all your dedications, and keep up the good work. The kind of projects you guys take on and the sheer volume of projects that you take on and accomplish, and then keep adding to that list is not seen in very many communities, and I'm very grateful to you.
Thank you. Particularly thank you to somebody who's been a long-term investor in our city. Okay, any other comments from the public?
Johnny Stimley, City Council member. I just heard about the Memorial Hospital site. One of the things that I did hear too from the public was the former developer of the Elston Legacy apartment. When they if you had a contract with him, when they breached the contract, was there any funds coming back to the city for the investment the redevelopment made?
Say the last part again.
Was there any if you had a contract with the Elston Legacy apartment development? Was there any kind of a breach of contract where they had to pay the city back in any funding that with the investment, I believe over $1 million was made by the redevelopment and infrastructure back to the city?
We didn't. The investment that we made in the project was for the infrastructure that's in the ground that we'll use for the next development. As for the notice of breach and pursuant to the terms of the contract, they obviously were noticed that they were in breach, and therefore we were terminating the agreement. And it also included access to, among other things, all the drawings, all the architectural designs, all the planning that had gone into, and I think there are probably a few more that they were using that we had worked together with them on. Those things with them became our property upon termination.
Okay, thank you.
But no, if your question was, does they have to give us money back? No, because we really never gave them any money. We just gave money to the site.
Our money all went to investment in the site. Now, we did lose time and resources with our staff, but they had a significant amount of time and effort invested in the project with their different architects and their engineering firms and producing the drawings. And see Mr. Cord, they're shaking his head. That's not a cheap process on their side. So they're out all that investment. And that's one of the reasons that in our contracts it's important that we have good off-ramps with people, and that there is clarity that they don't have recourse to come back and sue us for some of that work. So,
all right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, anything else?
I did have one item.
Sure.
Very brief, sorry, forgot. As part of the presentation that we made to the overlapping taxing units earlier, there's also a letter to those overlapping taxing units that goes out every year, and you received a copy of these in your packet. We just need to take official action to send out the letters as drafted. to the overlapping taxing units, indicating that we intend to use the TIF revenues that we collect from our taxing allocation areas for the next year. I just need official action on that so we can mail those letters out.
Move to mail to all these agencies.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any other comments from the public? Any comments from commissioners?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Two things, mainly maybe to put on our radar. I spoke with Craig about this, of having maybe the Redevelopment Commission paying for design and engineering for the big cat house, the feline house. I know Councilman Stemley has brought it to my attention that they've received some grant monies already and some monies from the foundation. If Redevelopment Commission would do the design engineering, then I would be going to either Boyd or Riverboat to match what the zoological and the zoo already have in place. But we did have some discussions about paying for that. I think it's roughly around $120,000 for that. So this might be something that's coming our way. Just kind of give you a heads up. And then I would ask Mr. Phillips status on the 11th Street Station facade improvement.
You just approved tonight the down payment.
Okay.
For the work.
I mean, more of when it's going to begin. I guess.
As soon as we pay the down payment, he was going to schedule the work to begin. I'll follow up with Mr. Deutscher to find out exactly when that is.
Okay.
But we approved the down payment.
Not that
tonight.
I'm anxious or anything.
No.
Okay.
No. So,
But anyway, yes, and then to future we'll be talking about the feline house, and
Yeah, I think it would be nice if we had a one or two pager just describing in general the project, the approximate budget. It doesn't have to be perfect, but something so that we can have a good feel for who's contributing what and what the plan is.
I'll get with Superintendent Keenitz on that.
all I would ask is that we just make sure that we wait till after we get our June, hopefully, fingers crossed, June distribution of our TIF funds. Just puts us in a better financial position to be able to do that.
I've been holding the councilman off. I said it'd be July, so all right.
All right. Any other commissioner comments? And I've got one, I guess last month I teased everyone there was a potential art project to start on the You Are Beautiful site and be moved someplace else. Well, that project's still a work in process. Look forward to something later this summer or early fall, but I promise it will be a great thing when it comes to fruition. So no need to commit the You Are Beautiful site at this time for anything for that. So I understand. Also, we have the Bezic Center's art use of the property in August. So we approved that previously.
Is it July? I forget. When is the art festival? We approved it. We approved it. I think it's early August.
Yeah, I want to say second week. I think it's right after the boat race. So, all right. Anything else for this evening? All right. Motion to adjourn. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you very much. Another great evening.